Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining EVED's educational series, How DMCs Can Win Meeting and Incentive Programs. For those of you who joined us yesterday, you heard from 5 different meeting and incentive buyers about what makes them buy. For those who did not hear the webinar, it'll be available on our website for viewing next week. My name is Talia Mashiach. I'm the CEO and founder of EVED. EVED is an event commerce company that automates the buying and selling for meetings and events. The content that I'm going to share with you today is based on yesterday's panel discussion with the meeting and incentive buyers, and the specific things that they mentioned were frustrations or things that they look for in a proposal, as well as my own personal experience as both a DMC owner and a lead sales executive for over 7 years. While I was a DMC owner, I created technology that automated my company. We went from $250,000 for our first year in business to $9 million in just our 4th year of business, taking significant market share from our competitors who had been established for over 20 years. So a lot of what I'm going to talk today is really based on some of that experience. And when I reference things in terms of technology, and we heard a lot about technology yesterday from our panelists, I am going to reference the technology that is in EVED E360 as one example of something that you can use. And the EVED E360 technology is really based on the experience that I had and what was successful for me in being able to create a company that went from $250,000 to $9 million in such a short time. And, you know, we'll also be showing additional ways as well that you can go ahead and win your business. I want to welcome everyone to our 2nd session in the 4-part education series. Thank you to ADME for allowing us to sponsor this educational series. And over the next hour, you will learn how to win more meeting and incentive programs. Your takeaways today will be around the best practices on the proposal process as it relates to the live communication with your client, the most important aspects of a proposal that are going to help you win the business, and what's hurting your chances of making the sale. I also just want to let everybody know that you can follow the conversation on Twitter at EVED Marketplace or at Talia at EVED CEO, and we'll be tweeting live during the panel. I also want to make sure that everyone knows that this is hopefully going to be an interactive session. We will be taking questions at the end, and you can submit your questions throughout the entire discussion. You should remain on mute the entire time so that everybody can hear very clearly, but if you do have a question, you just simply go to the top of your bar where it says chat, and you can chat to implementations operations 2. There'll be a little host in parentheses next to it, and you can put your questions there. And hopefully we'll have like the last 15 or so minutes, 20 minutes, depending on how many questions come in throughout the session, that we'll be able to spend some time on answering questions. So as I mentioned, this is really an overall taking everything in that we learned yesterday. And for some of you guys, it may seem very basic, but based on the things that we heard yesterday, some things as simple as, you know, a phone call after receiving the proposal is not common. And some may find that surprising. So we're really going to go over the entire process of what we can do from both the communication with the client as well as what should be in your proposal and the final delivery of that proposal as we go through today. So the first thing is really around understanding the RFP. We heard from our panelists yesterday that they feel that the DMCs are not taking the time to truly read and understand what they're asking for in their proposal. In their request for the proposal. What's the specific information that they want? When do they want it? They said sometimes they're not missing dates when they ask for a turnaround time. It's not, they don't get it when they're asking for it. They really want you to think about why they're asking for it, who's it for, what format do they want it in, is there a specific template, instructions, even pricing instructions that they're asking for. And I know that this sounds maybe so basic, but we heard from, I think, every single one of our panelists yesterday that this is one of the most frustrating things that many buyers experience, is it doesn't feel like the DMC is truly reading the details behind the RFP and not responding with the information that was requested. So step 1 is to really take the time to really read that RFP. The second is really understanding the client. You know, have you worked with them before? if you're part of a network, has anyone else worked with them in your network? We heard again from the panelists yesterday that it really should be an advantage if you're in a network with other DMCs that are in other cities or in other countries, but they often can tell that you're not using that network. And it's very frustrating because the kinds of things they come back with, they feel like if you would have spoken to anyone else in your network, you would have gotten that information. From a technology perspective, a great place to be able to store all this information is something called a CRM, which is a client relationship management tool. There's something out there called Salesforce.com, which is really great, where you can store all this information about your clients. ACT is a good tool. It's much simpler and a lot less expensive. But having a central location to look up the history your company has with a client, and certainly if you're in a network across your network, is so important. Also, having a centralized place where all of your proposals that your company creates live. Because if you have gotten a request for a proposal, you want to go back and look at any of the other proposals that have been sent to that client. If you won the business, you should know why you won it. If you didn't win the business, go look and see what you did there, and maybe you'll understand why you didn't win that business. So it's just also such a great way to be able to share that information. So if you can't find what you're looking for quickly, it doesn't help, and you're going to be spending a lot of time. Having all those proposals in everyone's individual email boxes is a really difficult way to be able to respond. For the meeting and incentive clients that you have that are on EVED and managing their suppliers, when you respond to their RFP through EVED, you'll store all of those proposals there, so you could actually go back and look through all of your RFP requests, and you can search by client, and you can go and find your proposals in that place. For those who you could use an E360 is also a place where all proposals and costing are stored and can easily be able to be found. So now that you've had a time to really look at your look at the request for proposal, you've done some research and understood the client, the relationship that you had with the company, your company has with the client, with maybe your network has with the client. Now it's really time to research who the program is for, the client themselves, and know everything about them, whether it's a pharma client or an automotive client. Who are they? You've reviewed everything on your own. We heard from our panelists yesterday that they don't want stock proposals with every option that you have. We heard that over and over and over again. They want you to take the time to understand the program and come up with something strategic that is specific to the program that they're asking for. So the first step in doing that is your ability to start with researching the client. Who are they? What are their core philosophies? If it's an internal meeting, then you know what? Their company culture and their values are going to be important. If it's an external meeting, or a product launch, then their brand and their marketing materials and their brand colors are all going to be important. If you are, and I'll give you a great example. I remember doing a program for CDW, and at the time the rivalry was Dell. Well, CDW's colors were red and Dell's were blue. And if you were to come up with a proposal that had any blue in it, they would have just tore that up because you didn't do any research to know that those were the colors of their chief competition. So all of those things are so, so important, as well as understanding what their messaging is. If they're a company like Starbucks that is very specific around the environment, then you certainly don't want to share a proposal with them that has some things that might be pretty heavy on polluting the environment. So it's all of that that makes you really well prepared and also allows you to be able to create a strategic proposal. You can easily find this information out by searching on Google. You can look at some of the press releases that company came out with. You can look at the company website. A lot of them have core principles on them. And I'll tell you, the best impression you can make to your meeting planning client is being the expert on their client, telling them about what's important to their client. Then they really have confidence in you that you're going to make them look really, really good, which is what this is all about. The second thing that is so important, and everyone thinks, oh, if you're going to go to technology, then what's going to kill, we want the personal touch. It's the personal touch. Well, I'll tell you, from my experience, everything was about the communication, the live communication that I had with my clients. If I could go in and see them, I would opt to do that. Technology is not the replacement of the human interaction. It is the enabler to automate the back office paperwork so that you can spend time talking to your clients about the things that are important. And the most important thing is to communicate with your client throughout the proposal process. Again, the most important thing that I felt is how I won the business was because I picked up the phone and I spent and engaged as much time with my client would give me around the proposal and the program before I sent my proposal. So the first thing I would suggest is that you acknowledge via email that you've received the proposal. As soon as it comes in, within 24 hours, you want to say thank you for it. Is there a time in the next week that I can set up a time to do a 15-minute call with you? Now, if there's a short turnaround time, you might have to do that faster, but remember, your goal is to be able to have the chance to do some research and understand it so you are prepared to be able to ask some specific questions. So I'm going to stop for just 1 second because we had a question that came in that is relating to what I'm talking about, and I'm going to answer it. And the question is, what's your suggestion when the information is not included in the RFP and the client won't provide it or doesn't give the DMC the time to answer those questions? Well, you know what? That is really a great question to ask. I could tell you from my personal experience, if you need specific information and you're interested in personalizing and we heard from them yesterday, personalizing it, and they're not even willing to answer your questions. They may not have the information, but not even willing to give you the time. I really wonder what your chances to begin with are of winning that business. And it may be that that would be, to me, a signal that they've got someone else in mind and you might be just a second or third bid. And what I would try to do is always, as best I could, be able to get those questions. And if there was no way to be able to get those questions, you make the decision that you're going to move ahead and respond to that proposal. You're just obviously going to have to do the best you can with it. But once again, I really believe especially on a large program, if a planner is seriously considering you as a possible DMC, then they are going to take the time. My suggestion also could be that you leave them a message saying, I really want to provide you a great proposal that's going to meet your needs. Would you mind just giving me 5 minutes of your time to be able to answer it? And sometimes, whether that's via phone or via email, they become more responsive, especially if you're asking for just a small amount of time. A second question that came in was, what do you suggest when the client, meaning the meeting planner, doesn't and won't share who the end client is? So then again, I think it's walking through with that meeting planner, the reason why you're asking that information is because you want to provide a great proposal for them that they can then help them win the business or make them look really good. So if they won't tell you exactly who it is, then I would tell them exactly why you're asking and then say, can you give me any information that will help me? Here's the kind of things that I'm looking for. What industry are they in? What's important to them? Do you know what their brand colors are? And sometimes when the meeting planner does understand what the reasons are that you're asking for those questions, and that means that they may look better and that they may be able to in turn give a really great proposal to their client, that could probably also help. But again, if you can't get the name, try and get the information that you're looking for that you would seek if you didn't actually have, if you had the name of the actual end client. Okay, so we've established the fact that you want to respond right away via email. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to provide a proposal for this program. Is there a time, is there 15 minutes that we can spend? I have some questions I'd love to ask you, and you're asking for that call, for that meeting. During that time, you're doing all of your research, you're really understanding it, and now it's time for the call. So what I did, and it was so helpful, and we're going to share this with all the attendees afterwards, is we created a company-wide standard call sheet that really helped to get the answers that you needed. So the first part was really just making sure you understood the proposal request. So it's really reviewing it and asking specific questions like what they liked in previous programs, what improvements, finding out about the programs they did in the past and what they liked and what they didn't like. If you can ask who their DMC was that they used, were you happy with them or you weren't happy with them? What made you unhappy with them? all of those things are going to give you such great clues into what you should and shouldn't do. And a questionnaire that sort of walks the salespeople through that is really helpful. Asking what their expectations are, truly understanding their time frame. I find that a lot of times they ask for a response time from you that's it's fast, and it may be sooner than they really need it. And if it's a huge proposal and you really want to take your time, sometimes saying, is that really your date that you really need it, or is there more time on that? And just really understanding the time frame. Often, though, you might also want to ask the question, is this really a fast turnaround for you? Because we heard from meeting planners as well that sometimes the faster one, the person who gets it in first, sometimes wins just because their turnaround time is so fast. So you definitely want to clarify that. You also may want to ask how many companies are bidding on the business, because if you're one of like 5 or 6, you got a ton of opportunities. You've really got to think about where you want to spend the time. So I've always said I've practiced it myself in all the years that I sold, and I said to all my salespeople that proposals do not sell. People sell. Okay, you as a salesperson sell by building a relationship, by putting your ideas out there, and that's what bids it. And if your client really wants to use you, they're going to use you. So, you really need to be able to spend as much time as you can really understanding and building that relationship with that client. And if there's 6 of those companies that are bidding, they've used the same companies for the last 3 or 4 years, you may want to think about if that's something that you want to spend a lot of time on. Then the other is like, what's the most important to them? Who do they pick for the business and why? All of these are great questions. Maybe there's, a couple different things that I think will actually allow that the client will get out of you after this call. The first is that you're going to tell them that you care about winning the business. This is really important. The buyer said yesterday, show us that you care about winning the business. If you pick up the phone and you ask them all these questions and you're calling them, it shows that you care. The second is you're going to create a proposal that has a better chance of winning because you really truly understand what the client is looking for. And the third is you're establishing a personal connection with the client. And as I said, that's going to be the most important thing that you're going to need in order to really win the business as you go along. As you've gone through, now you've had a chance to have your call with the client, you've got your feedback, you take a few days and you're going to think about what you're going to propose. What was so crucial for me was actually being able to have the opportunity to call the client back again and say, all right, I want to share some of the ideas that I'm thinking of. So of course, before I would hang up on my last call, I'd say, you know what, give me a couple of days. Would you mind if I gave you a call back and I kind of shared with you some of the ideas that I've got and you could tell me if that's a good direction? Now we heard yesterday, all the panelists really loving. They said, pick up the phone, talk to us, tell us, someone specifically said, tell us what direction you're heading. Maybe we can, stop it right from the beginning. Also, I find a lot of the meeting planners, they like to have fun and be part of the creative process. And so when they get to be a part of it, when they own some of those ideas, that's also going to help in your chances of winning that business because they feel like they're collaborated a little bit with you on what that proposal should look like. So, you begin to lay it out before you go so far. You're going to talk to your client about the direction, tell them what you're thinking. If they tell you you're on the wrong path, you can save hours of time and also the chance of losing the business. If you're engaging your client in this process, it continues to further connect you and it separates you out from the competition. So I always said to my salespeople, you sell the client on the phone with this call about the idea, and then the proposal is the follow-up. You throw out, here's the venue I'm thinking of, and this is why. Oh, I love it. That's great. Instead of sending it over and, oh, this venue will never work because my client wouldn't do a venue, or we did this venue last year, or this is very similar to a program before. So you can really gear towards what you really want. All right. So that really concludes for us kind of the interaction before we've even started the proposal. And I think I really covered quite a bit of the frustrations and the tips that we heard from our panelists yesterday, as well as what was successful for me, and just engaging the client in a personal way and really preparing to write your proposal. So we're going to go into the second part of our discussion right now, which is really focused around what we heard yesterday around the proposal. What should the proposal include? So there's a couple things. The first thing we heard is shorter proposals. Nobody wants those 80-page proposals anymore. They said it, they couldn't have said it louder and clearer that they do not have time and are not going to read all 80 pages. So we need to figure out how to get the information that they're looking for in an easy way and in a shorter format. The second, we heard a lot about strategy. Don't just give us a list of your tariff. Don't give us 10 options because you have 10 options. Tell us why you proposed what you did, why you think it's the best option, how does it meet the buyer's needs of the program. It all goes back to that research that you were doing. So if you found out that the brand colors, let's just take Dell for example, are blue, when you propose a theme that has a lot of blue in it, the reason you're doing it is because those are the colors of that brand. If the core of the meeting is maybe a sales launch and they want to bring them all together, then you pick an activity that might be more team building, and the reason you picked it is because the goal of the program is for them to walk away with, closer relationship with their colleagues. So that's really what they want, is the things you pick is the why. They don't need a DMC to tell them how to make a pretty party or to tell them what venues are in the city. They want your expertise on why you selected it, because you understand what the purpose of the meeting is. The third we heard is easy navigation. They just need to find what they're looking for quickly, especially if the proposal is longer. They're just not going to sit and read through everything, and they need to come back and find things, and they want to be able to find it fast. We also heard about pricing. We heard a huge frustration that several buyers said they need the breakdown of pricing. And I understand from the DMC perspective why it's nice to be able to put everything in a per person price, but it's just frustrating to the buyer, and you potentially lose the opportunity for the business. Or your buyer is sitting there and trying to break it out themselves, wasting a ton of time, and they're just sitting there getting frustrated, where what you really want them to be is smiling as they're reading your proposal, not sitting there with a calculator trying to break down what you're trying to pitch to them. The next and most important probably is creating the experience. They're not going to read a whole page and this includes this and this includes that. Just let them view it and let them see, okay, I've got the experience. How am I going to have that? I can understand what you're telling me. And the last is make it easy to share. Meeting and incentive companies, and even clients that work for companies, everyone has a client that they have to then go and pitch this to. You got to make your proposal in a format that makes it easy for them to take and share it with someone else. So we're going to start with the structure. Okay, so we heard a lot about proposals being shorter. So you're armed with creating a customized strategic proposal that focuses on your content and what your client is looking for. So our panelists emphasize the shorter, more targeted, easy to find information with great experience. So here's how we're going to get there. We heard from the panelists yesterday that if you're a preferred supplier, they already know who you are. They have all your company information, and if you're on EVED, they have your profile, which should contain detailed information about your company. I'll tell you, I've heard from a lot of the M&I buyers, the meeting and incentive buyers across all the different companies, as well as looking myself. We're just amazed at how some of the DMCs that have profiles on EVED are so poorly done. I mean, it's your marketing image to your clients. When they're looking at all their DMCs, and that you heard them yesterday, this is what they see. And you have the ability to include all of your company information, the contact information, links to your website, your social media, videos, photos, ratings, all of your certifications, and it's in a beautiful format. And nothing that is so much better than what could replace the 5 pages that they don't want anymore. So my suggestion is that you either, you have a link, which I'll show you how to do, as, to your company profile so that they can link to it and then be able to get the full experience. And if you're not sure how to update your profile and you do have an EVED profile, you can contact our member service team after the webinar today. We have a number of DMCs that use their profile as their kind of about us link on their proposals, and it's definitely much more effective and impressive to the clients. If you do have it, it's very easy to just go to your marketing tool and being able to download your card, and you can take the link, and that's how you put it. And again, we can talk more about this. If you have any questions, you can contact our team. The next thing that we heard that was so important was around the table of contents. So a lot of people will put a table of contents in their Word documents, but you don't have your hyperlinks that take you down the page. So if you are using a Word document, you want to make sure that you put your hyperlinks in so that people can find it very quickly. if one of the other examples, and whatever technology you may be using, but I'm going to show you how we do it on E360, is you can see here that there's collapsible, and I'm actually just going to show it to you in a video format so that you can see how it works, and maybe you're able to repeat this. But if you could see, here's the proposal looks like, and all of the different, the schedule is all collapsed, and so everything's really clear. And I want to go into team activities. I can just flip and open it and be able to see what I'm looking for. If I don't want to look at it, I want to look at something else, I can click it and I can close it. And now I want to go look at the dinner reception, and now I can find out my information about the dinner reception. So this is really what we've done on E360 in order to be able to share that. But again, if you're using your Word proposals, being able to do it in hyperlinks is another possibility to make that work. But we heard that to be very, very important. The next thing that we heard a lot about was pricing. So, as you see here, it's kind of like a spend summary, which is detailing it. Often, I think that most DMCs are not aware that many of the meeting and incentive and corporate clients are moving on to technology where they originally had a budget in which they could put into a software, and the budget is at a category level, like this is how much transportation, this is floral, this is restaurants. And then anytime they go out and ask for a proposal or they get invoices, they need to map those to their budget. So what they're literally doing is, if you don't put it into kind of a summary for them and detail out that pricing, they're sitting and piecing that apart in order for them to be able to plug that into their technology tool and to get their budget. And that's just a ton of time and a lot of work. And we heard from them, we make it easy to do business with us. That's not making it easy to do business with them. So, we heard a lot, pricing per person on an entire program is very difficult for them. We also heard that, hiding service fees, saying this doesn't include my 10% service fee, then they got to sit and take their calculator out again, and they've got to add it. And it just gives them a bad feeling. Or they missed it altogether, and then they find out about it later, and then there's also a very negative feeling, and they feel like, oh, next time I work with them, I'm going to make sure that they do that, or maybe I won't work with them again. So we also heard that loud and clear yesterday. And the third is around the why. So we've talked a lot about strategy. So the first, obviously, is directly answering the questions that were asked in the RFP. Personalizing the proposal for that client by explaining how the activities you selected will accomplish the client's goal and why you selected them. So, again, take into consideration the brand of the client, the purpose of the meeting. You pick the venue, tell them why you picked the venue. You pick that entertainment, why that entertainment. You pick that theme for the decor, why that decor. So instead of spending, 3 pages telling them all the inclusions, start with telling them, this is a great venue and this is why I selected it for you. This is the big miss that we heard, that they'll tell you that DMCs really are not doing for the client, and that would make a huge difference for them and really what they might pick as a winning proposal. Now we talk about, painting the experience. So, from your intro paragraph to every detail, you want to walk them through what the attendees will see, feel, smell as they walk into the room for an evening. As one of our panelists said, create a site visit from the client's desk so that they really get a feeling. Use photos and videos. What's so great about the internet, when you had to send your 20-page or 80-page, which hopefully not anymore, proposal, you really didn't have the advantage of all the videos and photos that you now have with technology. So use that and embed that into your proposal. It is important to have the quality photos and quality videos. We heard that a lot, which is high resolution, which is 300 dpi, because as I'll talk about, they are going to repurpose that and use it and share that with their client. So I want to take a minute to talk about the power of video, because that is something that I see as the biggest opportunity for DMCs to move from the same way. And I guess I would ask all of you to ask yourself, if I've been doing my proposals the same way for the last for sure anything more than 7 years, but I'd even tell you even more than 3 years, then you want to take a whole fresh look at your proposal and say, okay, how is it possible I'm still proposing the same way I've done for all these years, and there's so many different things that you can do now, and completely different because of the internet and the way that people buy. And that is going to be your fresh look. So where I see the biggest change, and we heard it also yesterday from our panelists, is the power of video. So if you even like recently shopped on Amazon or on Zappos, I mean, these are retail items where pictures should really sell. You'll see that they're adding videos every day because they've proven to increase the chances of a sale because it creates an experience, a feeling. So what industry could be more relevant than the event industry where you're buying the experience? So I'm going to walk you through a little example because I want you to understand the power of a video and how that can completely change the way that you might be proposing. So first I just want to stop for a second and ask all of you guys to read the content. So all you have is content about, your description. Here's your description, and I just want to see if, can you picture it? Does it get you excited? Does it make you feel like you want to buy? Does it give you a visual of what's going on? So, this is a short description, and then imagine if you really had to take the time to read like 1,000 more, tons of words or a whole page. So I'm going to give you about 15 seconds and read the description on my page. Okay. Did it sell you? Did you get excited? Are you ready to buy? Now we're going to go to the next level. If you look to the right, I have high resolution pictures. If you look to the left, I have low resolution pictures. What looks more professional? What looks good? Because they're going to blow up your pictures. But let's focus for a second on the high resolution. All right, you read the content. Now you're looking at the pictures. Does that make you feel a little bit more excited about the destination? Does it give you a sense of what the experience your attendees are going to have based on looking at the pictures? Now I'm going to go to the video, and I'm going to try my best to be able to put the phone as closely as I can so you can hear what it's saying. So just give me 1 second to play this video. So as you can see, and hopefully everyone was able to hear, that it's a completely different experience when you're actually talking about being able to come to this Hawaii and this island, seeing the pictures that get you excited, and then you saw the smiling faces on the attendees. Now, that would be a great video for being able to introduce how your greeters are going to welcome everybody. If you were doing an activity like skydiving, you want to explain it, or do you want to have a camera on someone going down and actually skydiving and seeing how awesome and how everyone's like cheering around them? Even it's the decor of a room. You could show pictures, but you can also show the expression on people's faces as they walk into a room. And because the buyer, your meeting planner client, is going to look and say, wow, I want my attendees to feel that way when they come into that room because that's going to make me look good. You can't get that from content, and you can't get that from pictures, but you can get that from video. So, and you know what? So amazing is that the expectations now for a genuine video that really sells is not a professional video. It is a camera, just like you saw, was just showing and just capturing the experience of what it was, because that's more genuine. That's what people are really going to experience. If it looks too professional, then your buyer is not going to feel like that's really the experience that the client's going to have. So I feel like that is truly a huge way that DMCs can do that. So if you're going to take the video experience, then it's really about embedding it into your proposal that it looks really good. So you've got to put those videos on YouTube as your own private YouTube channel. Or you can, if you have your own servers, you can post them on your servers. What I've got on the screen is an example of, again, eVED's E360, where it's laid out really nicely. The client can see the small content, they can see the picture, they can press a video link, and they've got all different ways of being able to experience what it is that you are sharing with them. So with all of your proposals, your links, your additional attachments, it is so important to be able to store it all in one place. So if you think about it, you know, you're sending your client your main proposal possibly, maybe some menu options. You've got manifests going back and forth. You know, if you're going to send them additional things on venues, that's a lot of attachments to be able to open. So if I had time today, I would go through and share with you guys, and I suggest you do it yourselves, of imagine receiving something and having to open 5 different documents to be able to understand everything that the DMC is sending versus everything embedded in one document. So what I'm showing you here is an example where this is on E360, where all of the documents get loaded into what we call a file cabinet, and within the proposal, they're all links with a little file next to it, so you can open everything from your main proposal. So there's just one link and everything's there. If you want to do that on your Word proposals, you're going to want to store those files on a server, one of your servers, and then be able to grab the link and be able to put the link. So instead of a separate document that says a menu or any of the other additional documents that you have, you want to load those somewhere and then put the links to it so that your client doesn't have to open 5 or 6 or 7 different documents. And I'm sure if you're sending things that way, your client may also often say, oh, I never saw that. Did you send that to me? Because how can you expect them to have to open 5 or 6 documents to have a buying experience? So it just becomes very difficult. And also, from a storage perspective, you want to be able to go back and see everything that was a part of that proposal so you can use it. And again, like we talked about in the beginning, what was the complete proposal, having one central place to be able to find it. Of course, also you want to make sure that you have links to photos and to videos. Then we heard a lot about being able to have the proposal in a way that allows the meeting and incentive buyer to use it for their own proposal to their client. As we said in the beginning, every single one of your clients has a client. Almost all of them have a client, and they need to take your proposal and share it in some way. And so we heard a lot about a photo gallery and being able to have a link to a photo gallery that are the high quality, high resolution, which is 300 DPI photos. And I'm giving you an example here. Within our proposal on E360, we have an export button. So if you want to be able to somehow embed, if you use Word documents, an export button. So it makes it real easy for your clients to be able to easily grab, copy, and paste however it is that they need to do to repurpose it. If it's very time consuming for them to take that template and redo it again, they're going to be frustrated. One of the comments that we heard yesterday, and we asked a specific question, if you have extra time, should a DMC focus on how pretty their template looks or what the content of the proposal is? And every single one of our panelists answered that the content of the proposal is a lot more important because we are going to just take it and copy and paste it out, and our client's never going to see the template anyway. So don't spend all that time redoing your template. Focus on that content. Now, the creative experience of how they experience it is one thing, but I know a lot of times, especially if you're using Word or PowerPoint, and every time you change something, a lot of time is spent being able to manipulate all of that. Now that you've got your proposal, and it's all set, and it's strategic, and it's creative, and it's everything embedded into one, you're ready to be able to send it. So one of the most important things that people also, and this goes back to the communication that I talked about, which I think is so important in the sales process, is being able to pick up the phone and call your client and after you sent it and make sure that they've received it. A lot of times email goes into junk mail or goes into spam, and when you call them, you can say, would you have time to review it with me? Maybe I can answer any questions. Do you want to set up some time for in the next couple of days? Now, that's a huge opportunity for you to be able to engage again. You get a feeling for, did they like the proposal? They didn't. If there was something they didn't like, you might be able to clarify it for them. You may be able to answer any questions. So many DMCs never call or ask for a follow-up to say, can I review this proposal with you? Can I review it and answer any questions for you afterwards? So again, it goes back to showing that you care, showing that you want the business, which is what we heard yesterday were some of the biggest frustrations. And the one other thing is, don't be afraid to ask for the business. You know, asking, saying, when will you have a decision? You know, I'd really love to have your business. We heard yesterday, they want to hear from you. I really want to have your business. And I think people are afraid to say, I want your business, or to show that they want your business. So we've kind of come to the end of our sessions around, you know, the pre-proposal, the understanding the RFP, the importance of the content and what to put in and what not to put in. So a couple of other just little tips that I think we heard yesterday. First of all, they said, you know, one of our panelists said, I'm surprised how few DMCs have a post-con, and literally get a chance to sit down with us on site and ask us, you know, how we did, and so that you know you can improve for the beginning. That shows an investment in the relationship and that you want to do better. But I also would say, I sure hope DMCs have a pre-con, especially for a large program. I mean, that was something that was really important when we had our company, is that we made sure that before the program started that we understood all the expectations, that we met all the travel staff that was on site, that they had all of our phone numbers and everything else. So a pre-con is important. A post-con is very important for the ongoing relationship. You know, you may work with meeting an incentive client once a year, but it's important to follow up and get feedback. I know Jill Annenson from ITA Group said, I once got a phone call, you know, a couple weeks after the program, and they said, how did it go? Did you hear good feedback? I mean, she mentioned it because she was so impressed by it. And I think requesting ratings, so there is a tool on EVED where you can request your ratings. You want to really know how you performed so that you can improve, but also your client sees, wow, they care about doing a great job because they're sending me a request to rate me. So therefore, you know, I'm going to take that time to rate them and give them that feedback. So all really, really important things to be able to do, to be able to keep in touch, you know, throughout the year. So I am going to go now to some Q&A, and once again, you're able to go right to the top of your screen and hit that chat button and be able to hit to the organizer and being able to hit your questions so that I can answer them. I have a couple questions that have come through, and I'm going to answer a couple of them while we wait for some more questions. So the first question that came in is, what do you do if you don't have technology in the short term? So one of the things that we talked about yesterday, we asked the panelists around what's new for the next 18 months. You know, what's going to happen, what's going to change, what are the demands? And the answer we heard was that our clients are continuing to ask more of us, and technology is going to be the key. And that we heard from them that they don't feel like DMCs have really realized how important technology is going to be, and have really adopted in the way that they want, that they're forced and they're pushed by their clients to have to do it, and they want to see their DMCs do it. And the next 18 months, it's a great opportunity to start looking at that. So I would say for the long run, you really want to start looking, again, take a fresh look at your proposals. If you've done them the same way for the last 5 years, it's time to take a new look at how you do them, and start thinking about planning for the next 18 months. In the short term, if you're using Word, I mean, I gave a lot of different tips on how to embed it and how to work with it. I think that you can use those tips until you can find more efficient solutions. I think the key that I hope everyone got across today is that you have a technology that helps you move faster and be more efficient on your back office stuff, like not wasting time copying and pasting and working on your template, and spending that time instead talking to your client, understanding their expectations, building that relationship, much better chance of winning the business. Another question that's come in, what if you want to sell a theme like Winter Wonderland or a fall theme and the client doesn't know dates? Well, I would suggest that if you don't know the date of the program, that you may not want to sell some of those themes. You want to probably stay more universal, because I've even had it happen to me where they've asked us for something and we've responded, and then they added another piece of information without even ever asking, and then just looked at the existing proposal and then struck it right away without even coming back. An example of that is they said, oh, we need to have venues within 2 miles. and then they expanded and we stayed with only those 2 miles, and then they expanded it to 3 miles or 4 miles. Things like that just, so if you are going to pitch the Winter Wonderland or the fall theme, make it very, very specific. Right above that, say, again, if you're talking about why you're picking that, then that's a perfect place to say it. If the event happens to be in the winter or it happens to be in the fall, this would be a great theme, and this is why. If your event is not during that time, we suggest alternatives. So if you're going to do it, I would make sure that you keep it very clear. Another question that's come in says, I don't want to show my client our detailed pricing. What's your opinion on this? So I understand this really well from both sides, because as a DMC, it was really hard, especially when some clients are starting to say, we want cost plus and other things, and they just don't really have a clear understanding of how DMCs make money and how they need to price. And I battled that, honestly, internally, and I try to find a compromise between giving the client what they really wanted and making sure that, we were able to do the things that worked for us. So it's tough. And you know what? We risked potentially losing some of the business, because there are clients out there that if you don't give them the pricing the way they want it, they just won't look at it. So you sort of don't have a choice. But that doesn't mean that you have to do that for all of your clients. If you're not comfortable with that, just make sure that's maybe something on your questionnaire, and you know that the salesperson has to veer from your standard of not showing detail, because it's something specific you need to do for that client in order to win the business. One question that came in is, instead of Word, what format for the overall proposal do you suggest? Well, I honestly think that, and this is part of what I did as a DMC and why I founded Evet as a technology company to provide technology to the industry, is I didn't find the Office suite of products from email to Word to PowerPoint to be at all a good fit for the DMC business. And when I started my DMC, I created my own technology, and I am a technology entrepreneur, but I created my own technology because it didn't, the Word and PowerPoint didn't do it. It took too long. It didn't work for what I was trying to do, and I certainly couldn't build my business quickly, and I certainly couldn't get the good response time, and I didn't want my salespeople or my team spending time doing back office stuff. It didn't make any sense to me. So I built a technology that would automate all that and be a great experience for the client. So I took that technology, that experience, what I learned from there is what I've put into E360 on Evet. So that is one option from a technology perspective. There are other things out there. There's some proposal tools out there, not necessarily, there's some that are more built for the industry, there are some that are not built for the industry, but I think that you want to go with an industry-specific technology. I really think it's time for DMCs overall, not just from a proposal, but from the entire way that they run their business, to start looking at technology, because the demands are just going to grow on what you're going to want from your time, and your cost is your labor of your people. And if you have to spend time doing those things, your profit margins are going to go down. So really, technology is going to be huge. It's an investment up front. It's a change. It's hard, to go through that. But in the long run, it's going to increase your profit margin. It's going to make you win more business. You're going to look better to your clients, as we heard yesterday, that you're investing in technology, and you look different, which is really huge. Another question that we got in, we got about 5 minutes, so if anyone has any additional questions, please send them in, because I've got a few left here, and then we're going to have to close the session. So you say not to give an 80-page proposal, but it's important to my sales process to show how many options. How do I balance the need to sell all of the options and to be brief? Well, I think the disconnect, based on what I heard yesterday from the panelists, is the DMC thinks that showing so many options is going to say, look, if you don't like this, you can do that, and if you don't like this, do that. So pick me, because I can do anything. And what we heard from the meeting and incentive buyers was, I know you can do all those things. What I want to know, and why I'm going to pick you, is because you understood my program and you told me the 3 things that you could do. So my suggestion around that is, don't show all of them. And if you want to pick, one main one that you feel is is really the reason why you picked it, it's okay to put a couple alternative options and to say, and that's also part of what you engage when you're on the phone. These are not things that you can do on a piece of paper. When you have that phone call with the client, you could say, I'm going to share, based on everything that you've told me, I'm going to prepare a proposal that I think is going to be a great fit. But I'm really interested in your feedback, and if you think that there might not be something that quite fits, tell me so that I can work on something different. The other thing is that call, when you've thought about what you want to propose right before you send it, that call, if you have 10 options in your head, go through those 10 options with the client on the call, hear the reaction to those 10, and that'll help you to pick the 3 that the client wants instead of thinking that they're going to actually read 10 of those options on paper. So that's a huge way to be able to do that. Another question is, will you share this deck? And yes, we are going to be sending a follow-up that will have this entire recording as well as the deck to everybody who attended, along with a sample questionnaire sheet that we've created that you guys can use, or you can create something else in your own company to kind of, for that call, that will be able to have the questions for the salesperson to kind of walk the client through to gather information. Another question that came in, suggestions to approach meeting and incentive third-party planners to get on their radar. Well, so that's a great question. I'll tell you, when I started my DMC in Chicago, it was new, so all of the big meeting and incentive companies already had relationships with local companies. So it's the hardest thing is to break in when you start. And so I really thought about it, and I wound up in a pretty short time actually being able to get almost all of the major third parties get onto their list and be on their preferred list. And the way that I did that, honestly, was really getting a differentiator between our company and what I knew of my competition. Now, the way I did it was technology and providing full service. I tried, having great service and really good ideas is, nice, but it doesn't really, the meeting and incentive companies say, but the clients, the DMCs I work with already have, they have good service and they are really creative. So I don't really need anyone else. So what is it that you have that they don't have? So what I had was technology, and my approach to the client was, we're going to be the easiest company for you to do business with. We're full service. We're in all the hotels, and you know what? You can do business with us. We can turn our proposals fast. We understand what you want, and we're going to adapt to it. So that was the message I sent, and it took time, but over time they realized that we were going to invest more in that relationship than anyone else was going to, and we kept recreating ourselves as a company to meet their expectations. And honestly, and then of course it's great execution and creative ideas, and I started by just trying to get the chance to let us bid on one proposal. After all, let us just give us one chance. And of course, I went through the process that I just shared with you guys to really separate ourselves out. So they had a great experience. And finally, it was one meeting planner who was just so impressed with the fact that we called them, that we met with them, that we talked to them, all of those things I shared with you today, that we were creative, we were strategic, and she decided, she got permission from her client to use, at that time a non-preferred, and I know that this doesn't normally happen, but, it depends on the market, and they gave us a chance, and she was so happy with it, and she went back and said, I recommend that we look at them. And now it took a little longer until they'd open it up, but that is really how we were able to do it. And we heard yesterday, someone asked that question to our panelists, if you have a new DMC that gives you this awesome creative proposal and one that you've worked with, and we heard them say if they were creative with the pricing, if they were able to figure out things that were better, for example, put bean bags in the room. How expensive are bean bags, right? You could buy them for $10, but that's a cool, new, neat idea. How can you create something new and different and wow that doesn't necessarily cost more? Or obviously what I talked about in terms of showing that you care more about the business, those are things we heard yesterday that were things that they said depended on the client, but it definitely would be something that got their attention. You get one meeting planner to be able to use you. They have a great experience with you. That's their first step in being able to get into the door on those. Another question, and I think it's probably going to be our last question, is that says videos are really expensive. How can I do that effectively and in a budget? And I think I mentioned it. I would take your iPhone or your small camera, again, genuine, and do like a live video, and then on your computer you have that software that you can cut it down do not do a professional looking video, because I think it takes away from like what's the genuine experience that the attendee is going to have. So I actually think it's a huge opportunity to be able to do it low cost. The other suggestion I might have, if you wanted to do a professional video, they said actually it was a suggestion from our panelists yesterday, is potentially to do a video on your destination, because a lot of times it comes down to the destination and they have a group of people that will vote on the destination, and if they have a video they could share around the destination, like that would be huge for them. Or maybe a video of like the salesperson personally saying, welcome, thank you for the opportunity to do your business, here's a lot about our company. So a few different things that you can do with videos. And I think that brings us to our time slot of what we've got. I really want to thank everybody. I hope that you walked away with some great pointers. Happy to be available for questions. Really, doing this session and everything I'm trying to do with EVED and the technology is just taking all of my experience that I had in building my DMC and what helped me to be so successful, and sharing that with all the other DMCs out there. And it's really important for me. And so thank you for the opportunity, and I'm happy to be able to have a follow-up conversation with anyone who would like to be able to ask additional questions or talk about how they might be able to improve their DMC business and win more business. We do have 2 additional sessions in our education series. One is really specific around international DMCs, and then full service destination partnership. I'll tell you that was a part of what I also used, is we partnered with hotels and we offered full service to our clients. We just didn't do big stuff. We said anything you need when you come to Chicago, we're your partner, and that was a huge part of the ability for us to grow our DMC and our ability for us to get onto those preferred meeting and incentive lists, because it was a big differentiator. So if you want to hear that, we've got those sessions, and you can email us at marketing@eved for more registration information. I want to thank everybody, and I look forward to hearing from some of you after the session. My email is Talia, T-A-L-I-A, @eved.com. Look forward to hearing from you, and good luck to everyone.